You know, whenever I go out to eat for breakfast, I usually find myself a creature of habit. Like most of us, we tend to get some of the same things, the things that we know the best, the things that we like the best. For me, that's always been the Eggs Benedict. And I'll tell you, this is one of my favorite things. I've tried hundreds of different versions of this, and I still go back to it today. Now, you may or may not have experienced the Eggs Benedict before. I'm going to give you my version of it today, and we're going to explore a variety of things that you can do with it to make this a quick, easy, and absolutely delicious meal. With that, welcome to the kitchen. Once again, we are in our simple kitchen, showing that you don't need a fancy area or tools to make a great meal. Now, this is also an athletic channel, so we will be covering the nutritional aspects of this and how to make this meal very delicious and nutritious. So our pans are hot, ready to go, so let's get right to it. The basic tenets of a Eggs Benedict are egg, ham, and an English muffin. Those are the essentials. So ultimately, not a very hard meal. We'll start with our eggs. Now, I'm going to go ahead and grease this pan with some butter. Now, this is on a low medium heat. I don't want my eggs to cook very quickly. And this is going to be prepped for one person. So I'm going to put 2 eggs on here. Now, before I do this, a couple things to note. There are other cooking channels, like even the Food Network, which will tell you to not crack your eggs over the edge of a pan like this because it cracks the shell into the egg. What they're really just trying to do is make sure you're careful about not getting egg shell in your egg, and that's fair. So let's talk about how we're going to prepare these eggs. Again, very low heat. And I don't want this to cook fast. In fact, I want it to just barely cook. So you could use a tool like this, which helps. And this is going to keep our eggs all in one place. So I'm just going to put this down right in here, and we'll crack our egg like so. This is number 2. So as long as you're careful, you don't have to worry about cracking your shell into the yolk and getting a bunch of shell like that into your preparation. So just take your time with it. Cracking eggs takes a little bit of practice, but this is ultimately what you want. Now, we also need a couple of eggs for our sauce, but I want to point out something with that. The egg whites are often discarded when making the sauce, but this is great protein and we don't have to get rid of it. So let's go ahead and use it with the rest of our meal. We'll just add that in there. Now, this is going to cook. I put it on my oven, I put this about a 3. And I'm covering it with a lid because this is going to be done when the yolks turn opaque, or they just begin to gloss over, turning slightly white. I don't want it to cook any faster than that. So there we go. Now, for the sauce, I have often wondered about the Hollandaise sauce. When I made this years ago, I used the packaged, ready-to-go Hollandaise sauce mixes I could get at the store, and I thought that was pretty good. Well, one day I decided to make it myself, and I tell you, I have never gone back. It is so much better when you make it yourself. Plus, when you are using these prepackaged items, you don't have the control that you want over what kind of ingredients are in it. And as I've said before, food manufacturers are not your friend. They end up putting a lot of preservatives and unnecessary things into the mix, like artificial food dyes, which may or may not cause cancer, and they have no remorse about it. And of course, these extra chemicals and things can affect you in a variety of ways that are just not great overall. But initially, I was hesitant to try making my own Hollandaise sauce because it seems a little bit difficult. But I'm going to tell you right now, it is not difficult at all. I'm going to show you a way to make it very easily. So the first thing we're going to do is add butter. I'm using a half stick of butter. And of course, if you're cooking for more people, you'll just want to double this recipe. But most recipes out there call for a whole stick of butter. You don't need that much butter, and often that makes too much sauce anyway. So I'm just going to use a half a stick, and should be just fine with this. So now, generally, you would use a softened butter, pre-softened, but you could just put this in to the pot from the refrigerator and let it cook itself down. I don't want it to cook too much, and definitely not too hot. So be very careful about your temperature with this. Now I have my yolk pre-prepared, but I'm going to go ahead and add my other ingredients first. I recommend using a bit of white wine vinegar. This is excellent stuff. It's going to give a nice zingy flavor to your sauce. Now Hollandaise sauce basically is butter, egg yolk, and a little vinegar and some lemon. So here we have our vinegar, and of course you can use standard vinegar as well, but all you need is a splash. That's about it. And that's about a teaspoon. We're also going to add our lemon juice. Now it's nice to use fresh lemons, but if you don't want to just have a bunch of lemons going around and going bad all the time, you can just use the stuff that you can get in the store, pre-bottled, ready to go. And again, I'm using about a teaspoon in this, and that's all it is. Now, of course, use less and add more as needed. It's a good rule of thumb to always go by, because this is an easy recipe to manipulate. Use less, add more to taste as you like. So there we have our butter, white wine vinegar, and some lemon juice, and we are ready to add our egg. Now I'm going to show you how to separate your egg yolks. So I'm going to tap lightly around the edge of the egg. There we have it. So I've got a nice crack going around it, and I'm going to open it up. And there we have it. So the egg whites separate pretty easily just in that half of the eggshell. I'm going to toss it back and forth a couple of times just to get the extra egg whites out. And once that's done, and there it is, I'll put my egg yolk in a separate container. I have a whisk prepared, and I'm going to go ahead and drop this in to our sauce. Now the important thing with this sauce is that you're constantly stirring, because I don't want the egg yolk to cook separate. And it will separate very easily. And so what I'm trying to do here is just mix that in and let it slowly cook and emulsify. The idea here is I want these ingredients to become one. They're going to mix together and create a nice creamy sauce. Now, with the eggs, these are about done. And you're going to want to add your standard egg seasonings, like some sea salts, some black pepper, and try a little onion powder with it. It really makes the difference. Now, additional options you might consider are dill weed. This is a popular item to go with eggs, and I think it pairs very nicely, so I'm going to go ahead and drop some of that on there as well. Now I've removed this from the heat. It's going to continue to cook a little bit on its own just here, so I'll leave that lid on it and get back to our sauce, which we don't want to neglect. It's very easy to have this get away from you, so you got to pay a lot of attention to it. Now, one other thing to consider is adding some greens to your meal. You could go with a standard Eggs Benedict, but why not make it a little bit more interesting than that? And of course, this will include some dietary fiber to the mix. Now, I have here a baby spinach spring mix. This has some really good stuff in it, including some herbs, and we're going to take a bunch of this and we're going to saute it to go with our meal after the fact. Now you can see we've got a nice color going here with our Hollandaise sauce. And again, I just want to mix this very thoroughly, and it's okay to take it off of the heat from time to time. I don't need it on the heat always. In fact, you'll probably have more luck if you pull it off the heat, stir a little bit, add it on the heat a little bit to Allow it to start cooking up a little bit more, taking it off the heat, and continuing stirring. This is the one thing that requires the most attention in this meal. And I think that's why some people find this to be so hard to make. But really, we're already practically done. It's just a matter of letting this thicken up and paying attention to it enough so that it doesn't separate and cook the egg yolks on its own. Already this is looking pretty good, so you can see it's lightened up a bit and it's getting creamy. We'll taste it for flavor in a little bit. So we are getting very close. Now, some people also like to include some cayenne pepper into their mix. This is optional, but I happen to have it right here, so why not? We'll add a little bit. And this is, again, just a dashing of it. It's not very much. That's probably all we need. So you can see what I put in there. That's it. Mix that in. Enhances the color a little bit as well. You can add a little bit of salt to this, but if you want to cut back on some of the sodium, that's fine too. Now the pan was warm already, so I really didn't need to leave this on the heat very much at all, and it did just fine. If it does happen to start cooking a little too much, you start to see it separating and getting away from you, easy thing you can do is add a little bit of water to it. That actually is sometimes helpful anyway, because if you want the sauce to go a little bit further, then that will increase your volume slightly. You can even add a little bit of milk for a more creamy texture. But that is pretty much what we are going for. Nice, shiny sauce. So I'm going to turn that heat off. This doesn't need to cook anymore, so I'm going to put the Hollandaise sauce to the side. Now, on to our greens. I'm going to grease our pan a little bit here. I'm going to add some olive oil to it. Just a bit will do. Now, as you're adding your greens, understand that these are going to cook down. They're going to reduce quite a lot. So you can actually put quite a bit on here. And that'll be plenty. Use more than you think you need is a good rule of thumb to go by. Now, you could add a variety of things to this, like some sautéed mushrooms or some other vegetables. This actually pairs very well with some asparagus. But today I'm going to add some kimchi. Now, kimchi is a Korean dish made from fermented cabbage. This is a live product, and it's a great way of adding some probiotics to your diet and some extra fiber. I'm not actually going to cook this in here and saute it because, again, it is a live product and I don't want to kill those cultures in it. So I'm going to add it afterwards, but I'll have it on the side for now. As for our leaves, I just want to move them around until they start to wilt a bit. And with these as well, I don't want to overcook them. When they start to look like soggy spinach from a can, you've gone too far. Right. So we're just reducing this a little bit, and you can already see this is quite a bit less than what it looked like I started with. They don't require much heat. You could cook this on a medium low, and that's really all it will probably need. Okay, I'm liking this. It's starting to come together very nicely. Now, at this point, we've got to start thinking about our plating. And there's one other thing I want to include on here, and that, of course, is going to be our meat. Now, as I said, move that to the side for now. Now, as I said, you'll want to put some ham on this. So if you don't want to go out and just get a chunk of ham, you don't carry that around regularly, an easy way to do this is just to get some deli meat. You get a quality deli meat. It's pre-cut. This is a very easy way to make your meal. Now, I'll take a few slices of our deli meat, Smells very nice. And I always heat it up. This is me. It is ready to go, so you don't have to cook it, but I like to heat it up a little bit. So I'm just going to throw that on there. I've turned my heat up a little bit, and I've moved my greens off to the side and off of the heat. So just moving that pan a little bit there, and that will do. Now, one of the last things we'll need, of course, is a good bread. Now, Eggs Benedict, it generally goes with an English muffin, but who carries English muffins around regularly, honestly? And what more would you use them for? I prefer just using a standard piece of bread because it's something that I would have around anyway. This actually goes really nicely with a sourdough bread if you got it or you want to do something extra special. But in any other case, you can use whatever you have. But I do recommend you get a quality bread, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Here are two different loaves, and you want to look at the very first couple of ingredients when you're choosing your bread. This one says enriched wheat flour. Garbage. This one says whole wheat flour and water. This is a much better quality bread. Now I like to use, this is one of my favorites, is the whole grain oat nut bread. But you can, of course, use whatever you're comfortable with. I have lightly toasted a piece of bread right here. And this will be our base. I've also plated this with a few apples to go with our breakfast. I'm getting hungry, so let's get this plated. I'm going to start off with my deli ham. Goes right on top of the bread. Now, of course, if you're wanting to do a low carbohydrate diet, you can simply skip the bread altogether. If you want to be more kosher, you don't like ham, that's fine too. You can replace this with any kind of poultry. Some great sausages out there would go nicely with this. Or, of course, you could just go without the meat altogether as well. We'll take our greens now and put those on top. And whatever else you've included, say mushrooms, asparagus. I do actually want to include something extra with this. And I have here prepared avocado. And so I'm going to place some of this avocado on here. And I'm going to make this a little bit fancy because why not? Just separating out those wedges a bit. Beautiful. Next we have our egg, lightly cooked with extra protein because we included that one egg whites. We didn't discard the egg whites, so that's just going to go. I'm just going to put that on there. It doesn't have to look too pretty. And then our Hollandaise sauce. Now, if this is started to set up a little bit, it's about the consistency of a pudding right now. You could add a little water to it to, again, add to its volume and allow it to run a little bit more. But I'm going to keep it at this consistency. Honestly, the water method is sort of cheating, and it doesn't really help the flavor, and we don't really need it. So I'm just going to go ahead and pour this right on top. Has some excellent flavor. It's got a nice tangy zing to it. Very creamy. It's one of the best sauces in the world. So good. And it's one of my favorites. Now, you can use Hollandaise sauce for a variety of meals too. It actually goes great with steak. So maybe look into that a little bit and let me know. Maybe I'll do an episode on that if you want. Of course, part of the showmanship of having a good meal is including a little bit of a garnish because the presentation is just as important as the flavor, I think. And so I have a little bit of parsley here to add some green to the top. But almost forgot my kimchi, didn't I? How about that? no worries. We've got a little kimchi here. And of course, if you're not sure about kimchi, which is understandable, it's fermented cabbage after all, so it doesn't sound too appetizing. We're just going to put this on the side, and you can try it as you like. But honestly, kimchi goes really excellently with eggs Benedict because it is a sour type product all by itself, and that goes really great with the Hollandaise sauce. And so together, you really won't even taste the kimchi. Yes, but again, this is a really good source of extra fiber and some probiotics to add to your diet. Now, let's have a look at our finished product. There we go. Now tell me, that doesn't look appetizing. Let's give it a try. There we go. Some of that egg on there. It's good as ever. I tell you, this is one of my favorite meals for a reason. If this hasn't been an endorsement for you to give it a try, I don't know what it is. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode of RecSport Education. I've been Ryan Shanahan, and please leave a like and subscribe, and I would love to hear about your experiences with this in the comments. Until next time, stay healthy.